My name is Alicia Shapiro with AInews.com, and welcome to another episode of our Driving Tomorrow Conversations with Industry Leaders, where we explore the latest developments and newest innovations in the world of artificial intelligence. Today, I'm excited to speak with Ben Ziomek, ALKU's AI advisor, who's been applying AI and data to solve real world problems for years. For those unfamiliar, ALKU is a specialized staffing firm that provides expert consultants in cutting edge industries, including AI, to help companies solve their most critical business needs. Before joining ALKU, Ben held leadership roles at JP Morgan Chase, where he developed AI models, analytics platforms, data products, and cloud infrastructure for home lending products. He also co founded Actuate, a company focused on AI computer vision threat detection. Ben was recognized by Forbes as one of their 30 under 30 for his impactful work in AI and finance. Today, we'll be discussing the current AI business climate, how AI consultants are driving growth for companies, and the increasing demand for AI talent in the workforce. So, thank you for joining us today, Ben.
Absolutely, Alicia. It's great to be here.
Oh, I'm glad to have you here. I'm really looking forward to today's chat. In your view, what are the most significant trends shaping the AI business climate today, and how do you see these trends evolving over the next few years?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I love how you frame this as a business climate question because over the last few years, I think a lot of the discourse has been about the models. And right now,
Mm,
especially in the business press, and there was a great article from the FT a few weeks ago, none of these companies providing models are really making a ton of money off it. And at the same
mhm.
time, they all seem to be becoming somewhat, I don't want to say commoditized, but have similar levels of performance in general. And
Right.
so I think what's starting to emerge from this discourse is that with AI and with generative AI in specific, the value add here isn't so much about the specific technology that's used, but its application to well structured and well defined business problems. And then
Mm,
having the well structured data that allows you to solve that problem without doing a huge IT or data engineering program first. And that
yes.
means while teams building AI and LLMs are still growing, I think there's going to be a massive opportunity, and there's already massive discourse about how the teams that implement these and maybe use off the shelf platforms to solve core business problems are really where the growth is going to be over the next few years.
Yes. I went to a conference back in August,
Ah,
and
yes.
one of the speakers was saying just that. They're like, "Well, you don't have to build everything from scratch. You can purchase an off the shelf package and be able to start implementing it easier and right away." So that's great that you're seeing that too.
Yeah, and I think I'm old school in AI. I don't know how
Mm,
that happened, but I've been doing this when it was mostly statistical based methods. And to be honest, the piece that I think may end up being the most impactful and the most exciting is that in the past, a lot of these techniques have been around for decades, but the
mhm,
data wasn't there, or even if it was there, it was messy. There weren't people who understood how to build data products. When
right.
people do this, maybe prompted by Gen AI, it's also going to unlock tons of high value opportunities in with traditional models, going back to machine learning, even statistical analysis, that have always been there, but just didn't have ROI to produce. And it's really
Yeah.
this growth of AI across the tech stack and across business models that is where new value is going to be found by people, I think, in new parts of the business that previously wouldn't have been able to attract the funding required to automate major workflows.
Yes, that's a good point to remember. And given your extensive background, how do you think that AI adoption has shifted post pandemic, and what industries are leading the charge in embracing the AI technology right now?
Yeah, and I think this really follows on from what I just said about
Hmm.
AI techniques and statistical techniques that underlie it having been around for a long time. But I'm going to conflate the pandemic and LLMs here because they did
Right.
arrive around the same time.
Hmm.
Before all this happened, AI and machine learning was inaccessible because you had to set up a platform, you had to have good data. But if you had that data, it was fairly easy to apply, right? Like you have
Right.
clean data, it's pretty like you created it for a reason. It's pretty clear the insights that can exist in the data. You had analysts to do this, you had BI teams, and you
Yeah.
could turbocharge them, but you were basically already a comp you were doing what they were already doing, just better. And then
Hmm.
since we've seen this growth in large language models, it's everywhere and people are using it for everything. But to be honest, I find that people don't really understand its capabilities. People, especially who've played around with ChatGPT and now Copilot on Windows are using it
Mm.
for things that they might not really be well suited for. And so it's super accessible, but really connecting it to a structured business model has become even more difficult because of the amount of misunderstanding there is across most industries, to be honest.
I find that too, just in my news reporting. It seems like a lot of businesses want to know how to implement it in a way that would help their business. They don't even know what its capabilities are.
When it launched, I think the numbers were like 90% of AI or data projects failed. I think it's
Oh, yeah.
improved a little bit, but just today I saw a Deloitte report that says 70% of firms still say that less than 30% of their projects make it to production. And less than
Wow.
30%, I think, was the lowest category. So you can just imagine what those real numbers are if Deloitte provided all of the
Right.
responses.
And from your experience, how can AI consultants help companies not only implement the AI, but also drive long term business growth? And could you share some examples from your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Connected to what I said at the beginning, I think that implementing the model is still, it's always going to be a valuable task.
Hmm.
But that phrase that you used, AI consulting, is where
Hmm.
more value is going to be created. The key piece here is getting to value,
Hmm.
understanding where companies struggle, where they're spending a lot of money. And then on top of that, having a gut feel to say what is solvable with AI based on the teams they have, the data they have, the way their processes work without doing massive multi-million dollar analyses. How can you get to an initial view of a
Hmm.
stack rank of what might be possible so that you can start to approach the top three very quickly instead of doing a full analysis to try and identify the best opportunities? In terms of specific examples, I think there's going to be a lot of exciting growth in industry specific and role specific AI over the next few years. One that I see a massive desire for, but not really strong solutions for, are all types of physical engineering. Software engineers have
Yeah.
Copilot, it works very well. But if you're an electrical engineer, there really aren't that many tools.
Mm.
And where I see things bridging into that space are very specific sales and marketing tools.
Yeah.
Already you're seeing the outbound approach that's been very popular, especially from startups over the past decade, is dying out just because so many people are using AI to automate it. But
Hmm.
what's still just now being automated are these vertical specific applications, such as if you have a technical document that you need to understand in order to sell to somebody, AI is starting to be able to distill that into something that becomes more actionable. And we're
Yeah.
going to see this unique knowledge creep down in specialist industries and specialist roles from sales and marketing understanding to execution and to delivery eventually. But given how complicated a lot of these situations are, I do a lot of work with electrical engineering companies currently. We'll see. I
Right.
don't think it's going to be next year.
And when it comes to AI consulting, what kind of building off of that, what do you see as the key challenges that companies face, and how can consultants help them navigate those challenges effectively?
Yeah, so when we talk about AI consulting, I really think of this as two separate roles. The
Mm.
definition of AI is always a little bit fuzzy, but I
Hmm.
think writ broadly, there's two types of people that would be in the space. You have people coming from more of a product and maybe a business perspective, but understand the technology. And you have the data scientists or machine learning engineers who really implement it. And I
Mm.
think the best type of AI consulting is going to combine those two talents. And the
Yeah.
mistake I see a lot of firms making is they go and jump and say, oh, we understand what the problem is. Like, we would just need somebody who can build a model to fix it. And you bring in a really skilled data scientist who can probably build models that can outperform any human. But the business case to define what human performance is, the understanding of what data they can use, and the understanding of what output can make an impact on the business doesn't exist yet. And so I think companies are just now realizing that they need to start by bringing in product or delivery focused AI consultants first. And then
Hmm.
that person can actually help them build out the technical team when they're ready to move to execution.
Oh, I like that. I think that's great advice. And while you were talking, it made me think about how some companies are using chief AI officers and appointing people for that, but they may not necessarily know what AI consultants might know. I feel like AI chief AI officers are probably just like a executive that got promoted. You
I
see the
don't,
differences in that.
being a promoted executive, that's not a bad thing. But
Yeah.
I think that there's a very specific flow that I mostly see. And again, The FT had an article, I think, very early this year that they were a fast mover to spot this, which is
Hmm.
that head of AI, especially at non-tech or non-tech adjacent companies, are being roles that they move the number two person reporting to the CIO into. And so
Hmm.
while that person is excellent at understanding compliance and deployment for giving their teams access to, say, Copilot or ChatGPT, it from a product perspective, understanding new technologies and how they can directly impact the business very much is a gap. And there's going to
Yeah.
be a need for both of those roles. But whether the
Okay.
head of AI really needs to be compliance focused versus delivery focused is something that we'll see evolve over the next few years.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. And with the rising demand for AI consultants, what qualities or skills should businesses prioritize when hiring to ensure that they get the most out of their AI projects?
Yeah, that's a great question because there are a lot of different ways of using AI. And
Hmm.
obviously, I come from a specific perspective, but I think the model I just walked through is the key here. You need
Hmm.
to bring in somebody first who can understand the business and understand where cost or revenue comes from that is small enough or at least structured enough that AI can really knock it out in a way that your staff is going to want to use the platform. So
Yeah.
that means there has to be a combination of business savvy interactions with operators, as well as a gut understanding of what this new technology can actually do. If that person can also build POCs or manage a technical team would be a huge plus, but really
Hmm.
framing those business cases is going to be the key because once you have those, you can bring in data scientists or contracting firms, maybe even offshore to build it, because most of these business cases do end up being fairly straightforward from a technical perspective. It's getting to that
Yeah.
spec that's the challenging part.
Yes. And I read somewhere the other day that someone recommended that you build your foundation first. You get everything set up before you create like an organizational chart and start putting people in there because you don't know what you need until you have your foundation and everything set first. So I like the idea of bringing in the AI consultant to help with that, understand what the business needs are with AI, and then you can start filling in with the quality talent.
Completely. And really, I think it's about building the foundational business understanding and
Hmm.
then building a data foundation because almost all of these use
Oh,
cases, although not
yeah.
all of them, are going to use business data. If you
Yep.
don't have both of those in place, you're either not going to have a clear win state or clearly defined problems that you can solve with AI, or you're going to have a really good use case, but you're going to have to go back and spend 6 to 12 months building out data products to support them first when you could have
Yeah.
started with that and do it in parallel had you focused on
Yes.
the foundations and the basics first.
Exactly. And as AI becomes more integral to business operations, how do you foresee the staffing landscape changing for AI consultants? And what kind of advice would you give to companies trying to attract the top AI talent?
Yeah, so there's a lot in that question. I think, firstly, in terms of how AI talent and AI consulting is going to evolve, this
Hmm.
might, where I'm going to go here might seem a little bit random, but I think we can learn a lot from recalling what happened with social media marketers.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
originally, when Facebook became large, especially when Instagram exploded in the market, went exponential for social media marketing and then influencers, that was people's jobs and they were really good at it. But
Hmm.
how many people do you know these days who really are social media marketers? I don't know any. Most of those people have been absorbed into marketing. They've become like outbound marketers, inbound marketers, relationship marketers. And for them, social media is a tool. I think you're going to see that with a lot of AI practitioners, maybe not so much on the hardcore engineering side, but
Hmm.
if you are a business strategist, if you work on like business process improvement, if you work on automating processes or new IT system design, AI is going to become a core piece of all of those skill sets. And you're still going to have people who are focused on that. You're definitely going to have people in the data science space who focus on specific elements of that. But
Hmm.
as AI becomes easier to use across businesses, it's going to be something that becomes part of every function as much as social media has become a part of marketing.
And before we wrap up, I'd like to ask a couple of lighter questions so our audience can get to know you a little better. When you do step away from your work, what are some activities or hobbies that you are passionate about?
So even though I live in New York, I'm big into the outdoors. I'm a big skier, so
Hmm.
spend a lot of time upstate and go out west, climbing mountains, skiing down them, all sorts of stuff. So that's definitely the single biggest use of my time outside of work.
That's nice. I love that. I enjoy nature, getting out there as well. I'm not a skier, but or a snowboarder, but I enjoy being in nature for sure. And what's the most important piece of advice you would offer someone who is looking to apply AI to real world problems in today's rapidly evolving landscape?
It's interesting because the core piece of advice is really learn the tech. But I
Hmm.
think a lot of people do play with ChatGPT, a lot of people play with LLMs.
Yeah.
And as we're seeing, that's not enough. I think people either think it can accomplish too little or tries to get it to do too much. I think the
Mm,
real thing I would tell people is go back to the basics, like understand data, understand statistical modeling. If you can do that, those are skills you're going to have, but it's also a framework of thinking about
mhm.
AI and machine learning in general that will give you the skills to apply models as complex as LLMs in much more immediately practical ways. So it might seem funny to go back and like to statistics 101, but I've found that I lean on those skills and concepts more in my AI work than a lot more modern techniques, to be honest.
That's great advice. I love that. And thank you so much, Ben, for joining us today and sharing your insights. It's been a real pleasure talking with you and learning more about your AI advisor work. So, to learn more about Ben's work and to connect with him, you can visit his website at, I'm going to spell it out, BZIOMEK.com, or connect with him on LinkedIn. And for more information about ALKU, you can visit their AI consulting services at ALKU.com. Keeping you connected to tomorrow. Today, this is Alicia with AInews.com.